Okay, so step number 1 in the actual build of the GUANGZHOU tower will be a 100k resistor. There are 2 provided, I believe you only need 1, so that goes on the board like so. So there we have our 100k, I'm guessing that will be the cap. USB female socket on step 2, which will be there. Okay, so step 3 is we want to place the header on the board. I've already done that, so step 1, step 2, step 3, and as you can see they're already soldered into situ. Okay, so step 4, and where is it gone? There it is, step 4. Right, so we have a 16 volt 220 UF electrolytic capacitor, which is correct. So long leg, short leg. The short leg has the minus there, so just make sure you get your polarities correct. It does actually state minus and plus on the board. So long leg in the plus, short leg into the minus, and that'll be the electrolytic cap lob on that. Okay, so step 5, install 4 pieces 5mm RGB LED. Here we have a 5mm clear candle effect flickering LED. So on some of these projects I've kind of veered away from the everything being the same, so I'm going to do the same with this. Instead of fitting one of the 5mm RGBs that came with it, I mean basically we're supposed to put one of these in along with that, but then it all just gets a bit boring and samey. So I'm actually going to put 4 of these, so they go on the outer edges here. So remember, long leg, short leg. What we got, they have marked plus and minus on the board to bring some light back. Long leg positive, short leg negative. You've also got the arrow. The point of the arrow end is always the cathode or the negative. So this one goes up here, and again noting the polarity. So again polarity. Electrolytic capacitors, LEDs and diodes all day long. Polarity, polarity, polarity. Big concern. And transistors as well. Okay, so that's steps 1 through 5. That's how the board's looking right now. So 4 LEDs, 1 resistor, 1 header or socket, 1 electrolytic cap, and 1 USB in. Okay, so step 6 is quite simply mounting the self-lock power switch. So that'll be on, that'll be off. Okay, so step 7 and 8 is install the IC socket and the IC itself. And normally you'd leave the IC till last, but we haven't got the workspace to put it in when we're done. So we're now working on the opposite side of the board at the moment. The notch in the socket holder goes with the notch on the board, and there's a nice big pointy thing for you. So, and she's in. So it's got a nice big area inside. For some kits do put the odd resistor or whatnot inside. So we'll get that onto the board. Right, so that's our socket soldered on, and basically now we're just going to slot the chip on. But both of those, chip holder and the chip, had 1 pin stuck in. So remember, the notch on the end of the chip goes with the notch on the board. Now this is probably going to be, yep, too wide. So what I like to do is find a flat surface and just gently try and rock all the pins across in one, and again just rock them all across into one, and we'll try and refit. Okay, so that will just slide in now. Ow! Pressed against the back and sharp pinned. Right, so that's the IC firmly in, and the notch is the correct way. The chip itself is step 8, so there's our chip. Okay, so now we want to do the VS1838B infrared receiver, which is step 9. This goes on the same side as the IC, and you can see there's like a little half circle on the board, which will be the round sticky out bit of the receiver. So that will go in there like so. I might leave it up slightly like that. Okay, next we're going to drop a couple of these threaded short pillars on. These will be for the Bluetooth module. So take 2 of the larger size nuts. Now in fairness, if you put the pins in there, there's actually more sense of actually screwing that in and then soldering it directly to the board. Not put the header in, I'd have slotted this straight into the gaps and then bolted it down to the board like so, and then soldered directly onto the back. But we've already put the headers on, and I have found these brass slightly longer pillars, so they're about 2-3 mil longer, so I'm actually going to install those instead. They're the same thread and nut, they just give me a slightly bit more headroom, which will be better for the way this board's been done. So my recommendation, basically put the board on with the screws through the holes for the headers, and then just solder the board in where the terminals poke through. Let's have another go. Right, it's still sitting angled down slightly, but as you can see, that has got a better clearance now. Then let's put one of these here. You can see the gap, so that's what I was trying to get on about with the just putting it straight onto the board with the screw mounts and then soldering it in. So we just put one of these little screws into the top, screw that into the brass mount. Again, just nip, don't over tighten. I mean, it's not like it's going to come out or anything, and you don't really want to do any damage to the PCB boards by crushing these screws down into them. So nip tight, there we go. So that's the audio amplifier board on. So we should, I think, be able to do a test in a moment. We'll see, we'll read through and carry on. There's our USB, there's our 3.5mm in. There's our infrared, our SD card. Right, okay, step 12, install one piece 3 watt 4 ohm speaker. So the long bolts up at the speaker and the short ones, which you'd think anyway would be normal, are for the pillars. So we'll have the screw heads in the top, because that's the bit you're going to see, because all we need should be one more nut for this last screw here. We can start spinning these up a bit tighter, finger tight. Now I would just make sure they are that extra decently tight, because, and it's probably not going to be mega vibrations, but you are going to get some vibrations out of the speaker, so if it was too loose, it is possible the vibrations could loosen the nut if it's loose enough to start turning in the first place. But that should be fine. And just recheck the other ends, because you can, when you tighten one end of something down, you can actually create it tight enough to loosen the other end up a bit. So that's the speaker on. The speaker wants to be wired, and I don't seem to have any wiring supplied, but it's not a problem. We have the, I've always assumed the right hand side is plus, and it is actually marked positive and negative here. So your positive is the inner one, and your negative is the, so the two little terminals here. The one nearest to the board is positive and the outer one is negative. Okay, so there you can see the close-up. I've done red and black wires so you can see the polarity. So that's our speaker. Now we should be ready to do sound tests. I think we could pretty much activate some of the flashing lights here and get some do apparently out of that, and it should connect Bluetooth to the phone. So let's get all that prepared. Okay, I'm actually back to plug the power in, and I swear to God this is the first time I've done it, because I've only just got the lead out. Right, so when I switch this on, we should get 4 LEDs, do, and noise from this when I press CH, and I should be able to connect to the Bluetooth, which I'm just opening up now. That's searching, so switch on. Right, so we've got the 4 LEDs, we had audio. So press the H button, we get the do. And I have CZL speaker on my available devices. So what I'm going to do is a quick bit of music, because obviously we have issues with copyright. Well, that worked. So we'll bang some volume up. So I should be able to press play. There we go, so that's the remote working. So, main board is now built correctly, the main controller, so this is absolutely 100%. What we need to do now is put our 4 posts on and start building our tower rings. Right, what we do want to do next is put the legs on. Now I've just stolen 4 from a different project that I used for the base, so that's 3 of them on. Right, so that's all 4 of the legs on. So now we've got our main board. So we'll plug you back in again quickly, just for show. Let's have a little listen even. She's on. Oh, a bit of limber. Right, so we know that's a worker. Okay, so at this point, we've measured and soldered the speaker terminals in by way of error. We did fit the speaker, but you don't actually want to fit that yet. It will live there, but yeah, do not solder that in yet. I've also removed the amplifier board. We know the circuit works, we tested it all out. So what we want to do now is start preparing the layers. So obviously we're going to start with layer number 1. Well, if you thought making the rings was tricky, this is probably one of the trickiest bits. Trying to get these little legs to fit into the holes. You try and get one in and then the other one pops out, and we are going to be here some time trying this. So I'm going to finish this off camera, because you will have your own adventure when it comes to putting the first layer on the board. So we'll be back in a minute. I did have it come apart. I've resoldered the ring back together. I was thinking perhaps I should have left it with one end open and then I could just feed it round. But it's actually started going surprisingly well once I got 2 in. Managed to get the next one across. Having said that, these 2 have been particularly brutish. There we go, that's one of them. That's the next one. So we're almost there. I am cheating a little bit and cutting some of them short, just so it's easier to slot them in as we go round. There we go, all the way round. So that is through all the way round. As you can see, it's not level. So what we'll do is we'll work out where we are at an average. That's not too bad actually. Oop. I'll try and I don't know why that don't feel it's not sitting level, but it is, I guess. Try and find something to make a level with. Right, what I could do is, I'm thinking we could solder one pin down and then say, actually that's not bad. Those tweezers, that's tweezers sitting naturally. So if I get the LEDs to a natural point between the tweezers here and the tip, like that, I'll solder that and I'll do that all the way round. So I'll get that one soldered in. What happens if I turn the board upside down? Tell you what, that doesn't look bad. I'll get one of those in and then I'll measure the other side and I'll pin 2 of them down. So I'll do this one this side, iron salt. I felt it move then. So we'll see where we are with that on the, that's just below the required height, so that one wants to go up slightly. So we'll just reheat that, measure. Yeah, that's about right. So the next one wants to be about the same height, which it is, so we'll solder that in. I'll carry on soldering these on, measuring them with the tweezer gap. That's it. And then come back. What you want to do now is take this nice long length of white wire they've provided. So yeah, get yourself a decent length of that. And you basically want to go from Y15 on this level. So basically each level, I'm guessing, is going to go 15, 14, 13, 12, etc. on the next level. So you'll be connecting Y15, which is this end one up here, to the positive rail on this one. So on the last one, this was kind of done on the inside, so you had to work out the lengths of wire. You got a heck of a lot of wire here, and because you're connecting all the rails to the outside, you can literally drop the wire down through the rail and just pull it through with tweezers, which is nice. So we'll just snip this like so, and we'll just take our ends off like so. Like I said, I'll go inside the thing there. I think I'll blue tack this wire in place, believe it or not, and as you can see it's poking through a bit, so we'll drag it back. So just try and balance the plastic sleeve on the edge of the hole. I can still see a bit of wire sticking through. That should be alright. This will all blob down inside that cable, and that should be wired on that end. So we've got plenty of spare wire on there at the moment, so we just really want to blob that into this positive rail. What I want to try and do is just hold it there, get a bit of solder paste and just melt that over it, because it's easier than trying to bring solder in and whatnot. You can just bring the soldering iron into this because it's got the flux already in it. Oh, now we've bent the bloody connection. There we go. The cable now connected to Y15 and the positive rail of the first level, which is, we bring the power back and we should get the flashing base level. So the power switch is off. Here we go. There we go. So that's the first layer of our GUANGZHOU tower. As you can see, it's going through its cycles, so let's crack on. Right, I've bent these in a little bit, as the instructions suggest, and what I'm going to do is that little kind of knuckle on the end of the LED, where the length of pole is connected or whatever in the factory, put a blob, wake solder on that. Put a blob of solder paste on that, and I'm going to introduce one of these other LEDs onto that and try and make the connection like so. And the same again with the next one, and you will find this solder paste is absolutely flipping godsend in situations like this. I mean, some might call it cheating, I call it use of available materials. And it's just so much easier to do that. So this one might want a bit more of a bend putting in it. Right, yeah, that'll do. Trying to keep the piece with all this up here. So this is gonna take a while. So basically, as you go round, you might just want to use tweezers to manipulate the LEDs lead to your best position. But yeah, that's going pretty well compared to my last efforts. As I say, I'll link Canton tower into the description, but that was a bit of a rush job to get it, a bit excited to get it done. So that's our first two layers, so let's kill the light. So I'm just blocking a bit of the sun through the window and we'll switch on. So it's best to test after every layer. So there we go, that's the first two layers working. So let's get number 3 on. It does suggest bending some of the leads, so as you can see I put a little bend in there. What I'm going to do is I've bent all the legs outwards slightly, and we're going to zoom out on this as well a bit. So basically I'm going to try and get this so that leg or that lead there just sits about there. I'll solder paste that and then try and level it up all the way round. So I've been watching Fresh Meat series recently from the makers of Peep Show. I think Peep Show is absolute crap, completely pathetic, but I have been quite enjoying Fresh Meat because of the Jack Whitehall character JP. I've never really been overly into Jack Whitehall. He's a good comedian, he's funny, but seriously, that Fresh Meat series, absolutely spectacular. It's brilliant acting. I have turned the soldering iron on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this one down onto here about that high, like so. And now I'll turn 90 degrees. We'll try and get this one at a similar level. It's not easy. We'll bend that leg in a little bit. That'll be about there. So a bit of solder paste, like so. So the next side again. So you've got to be quite, these are quite delicate, remember. So looking at it, that's actually a good height there. So all I want to do is try and bring that leg in a bit, making sure it keeps pretty much level. So that is a good spot. So about there, I can always melt and reposition. But I reckon that's about as good as any. So again, just check your level, that's pretty good. So we'll get this one soldered into here. That's as good as I'm going to get, I reckon. So these are really fiddly, they're really hard to do, and I'll give you a quick look at the previous attempts. I'm quite happy with that. As you can see, that's not a bad level. So that's our third layer. We're not all connected yet, so they won't all flash. Only the 4 that I've connected should flash. Of course it's not going to flash because I haven't connected it to the main board yet. So I'll finish soldering this ring in, and then I'll just show you ring by ring, because you don't really want to spend hours watching me solder every single ring on. But yeah, quite pleased with this so far. Okay, so we've got the third layer on, and now what we need to do is connect that to Y13 down on the board. So along the side here are all the connections for the layers. So Y13 will be the third layer, and then we'll feed that inside through here, pop it out the bottom, strip the wire, solder it in, and then we'll solder it to the third ring and test. So the soldering of the base is going to get harder because obviously we're growing our lengths of cable, and as we get higher we're going to have to solder on the side, because we won't be able to turn it upside down like this pretty much. We have got the speaker and the amplifier board to refit at some point, but we can't do that until we've done the top layers, because the speaker actually blocks out those terminals there. I might just use a little bit of flame to get that off. There we go. So that is just going to get soldered onto the rail here. Bit of solder paste. Fiddly jobs like this, I tell you, the solder paste is a godsend, because you don't have to worry about the flux, it's already in the paste. Right, that is on. Not overly happy with it, and those two have stayed connected. So at this time when we power up, we should get all 3 layers. So let's kill the little light and let's power up. There we go. So we now have our third layer working. Just reset that quick. There we go. All LEDs working, so that's fine. So next, obviously, ring number 4. So we're going to do the same again. I'm going to bend all of these out slightly, because it makes it easier to slide over, and then we'll get 1 or 2 posted on, soldered onto the board, so they fit over easier like that. So what we do now is we'll literally do one on this side, and we'll turn it 180 degrees and try and keep the level the same. So I'm going to bend this one at 90 degrees again, like so. Let's get a half decent height on here. In fact, I'm going to try and stagger it so it's across from that other one, because at the moment they're all going in a line. So let's try and mix this up a little bit. So that's the first one on. So we'll turn 180. So I'm going to try and place that one. Let's bend that around a bit more, like so. It's about a fair height actually. So basically we're just going to paste this one onto there. Like so. I reckon that one could go down a little bit actually. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I'll get the rest of this ring on. Right, okay, so we have our 4th layer on. It's all wired in. Let's see what happens. And we have success. So that's 4th layer on. And the 4th layer goes into Y12. So the 5th will go into Y11, 6, Y10, Y9, Y8, Y7 and so forth. So I'll get a couple more layers on before I come back and do a bit more video. And now I've got a layer not working. Okay, time to figure that out. Okay, so I quite simply just had to dab the lead wire, go into the 2nd layer with solder. It just become, where I'd soldered the bits together, basically it come apart slightly. But there we are, we're fully back to working. So let's just start it up again from scratch, cut a bit of the light out. And here we have the working product so far. Okay, so here we go for level 5. Yeah, I had to count that one out. So I'm going to bend this one in. So that's the first one on. So we'll turn it 180 and try and get a similar length or height even, is what I meant. So I'm just mopping up the dregs of the solder paste. So let's go 90, bend this one in. So 90, that one's on already. Okay, so let's do this one and then, oh, the solder paste on that LED there. I'll do this one and then I'll do the rest off camera again. This side just looks a wee bit high actually, so I'm just going to lower this one down a touch. And that wants to come up a touch, so just trying to get these levels is fun. That's good enough. So now we just need to do all the ones in between. Okay, sports fans, so here we have level number 5. So that's all 5 layers. Let's crack on. Okay, so we're 7 layers in and we're currently including the distance from floor about 6 inches. So that's currently our, I'm not going to show it lit anymore, that's the rest of the lighting show is going to be saved for the end of the video. So that's how we're getting on. But do, when you're building yours, do actually plug it in and power it up every level to make sure you haven't got any short. But yeah, that's where we are so far. So that's our GUANGZHOU tower. It's almost similar height to the old Canton tower I did. In fact, the main towers are now the same height. Zoom out some more. It's just this little sparry bit on top of this one. That's taller. So this one's going to be pretty tall compared to this one. So here we are, almost halfway. I've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When we put the next one on, we've got this much again to do, but on the top, upside down. So plenty to do still. But basically, I don't know if that's going to pick up on the soldering. We're just trying to solder them, bend them round, solder them on. I'll try and zoom in down here, so you can see a bit what's going on there. It's getting a bit trickier with putting these wires on, because you've got to feed them through the length of the body, up or down, to solder them in there. That's what stopped us from putting the speaker on, because the couple of those last 2 wires for the levels actually go into the speaker. So that will all go back on. But yeah, that's how it stands at the moment. Let's see if we can get a wide angle of that. So that's pretty much taller than the old one that we made, which is here. So as you can see, it is actually taller now. Almost higher than the actual spire, not including the one that I put on. Okay, so at this stage, as you can see, we've got quite a few layers on now. So wiring them in does start to become a problem. So what I suggest is starting at the base near where we're going to be soldering the next layer into. Just feed it up. And the easiest way is just to poke in between the holes. And here we go. So what I suggest is you just feed through a decent amount to start with. And then just keep feeding it. Poked up nicely there for us. So just watch as you pull through, because sometimes you can catch on solder joints. Like that. So just pull through. You can feed it through a little bit. So if you've got a little bit of curve in the wire, it does help actually to feed it through the next holes. So we'll go through this one and then up again, because we've got those close together layers of LEDs to get past. So again, just carefully feeding. So we've got the last few layers to go here. And there we go, we're all the way up. So now you could just strip the end, bit of solder paste onto the top ring, and jobs are good un. So the best way to do this, and it's getting a bit tall for my magnifying lens even, is push that back in, so we can just pull it down a bit from below. Bend the end over, so you've got like a U shape in the end of the wire, like so. And then with your tweezers, you want to try and feed that onto the ledge. Like so. Let's just get that in there. This is fiddly as hell now. So now we bring in the solder paste. Do a bit of light on that actually. Ooh, I'm going to be introducing the bright light any second now. Right, so we'll bring in the heat, and hopefully we should, if we come up from underneath, be able to establish a connection. So let's see if that will move. Right, so that should be soldered in. So now all I've got to do is apply the power and test it. So as you can see, we've got quite some height, and if I bring that other old one I made in next to it, you'll see even with that fake spire I put on, it's towering above, and we've still got a few more layers to go. So I'm going to test this off camera because you don't get to see it now until it's finished. Okay, so another really difficult bit right now is actually soldering these bases on, because as the tower gets taller it gets more difficult to solder these. So try and keep that lead away from the other solder joints. Again, I'm just going to go in with solder paste because it is so much easier on a project like this. You can manipulate things with one hand while soldering with the other, as opposed to trying to flip in, manipulate, solder and feed wire. So just heat the paste up, let it flow in. And jobs are good one. So basically 2 more layers and we can put the audio circuit and the speaker back on. Right, I'm about to solder the last connecting wire on. We've actually right, so I'm about to solder the last connecting wire on. We've actually finished the final tower apart from the actual spire itself. So I'll just get some solder paste onto that because it makes it easier to hold and to solder with solder paste. The flux is already in the paste and the solder, so that's basically that in. So now I'll do a quick, I'll just show you what we got. So there's the base. So we've got quite a tall old bit of kit now. We'll zoom out, there you go. So at the moment we're that tall. There we go. So that's the height of the actual, without the spire on. So I'm going to do a quick test, which you don't get to see yet. I'm going to put the amplifier board on, so we're going to take the speaker back off, and we'll just swivel that out of the way, like so. So if you remember, that just slips into the headers there, like so. And then we use 2 screws, 2 of these shorter screws, bolt it back down again. So you don't need to over knit these, just tight, not over tight. Okay, so this one's going to be a bit fiddly. Everything gets fiddly now. Not only have we got this bloody great tower sticking out of the board, and you do put the IC in at the start, because as you'll see you ain't ever getting that in there now. So that's the amplifier board with USB SD 3.5mm in, and Bluetooth of course. Okay, so now we're just putting the speaker back on, and I'm actually going to take this side of the speaker out and put the other side in first. Now the amplifier board's in, we're a bit tight on space. So slide the, remembering which end your wires are going to go on, slide that end in first and then pack this side down, otherwise you ain't going to get that in. So screws or bolts through the holes. I'm using a pair of pliers to get these nuts on flat, like, nope, not like so. Okay, that one went on alright. So just finger tight, loose, get the others on. Now this one's going to be awkward because of the bars in the way, or the pillar. So I suggest going back to the method I suggested before and getting the pliers to hold the nut steady, and then turn with the screwdriver. Turn the thing over. Now we've got the 2 on this end to do, so I'll come back to those. So you might want to nip these ones up just a little bit on the tight side, bearing in mind that the speaker will cause vibrations and that could loosen nuts and bolts. This side in particular is very loose still. But you don't want to do any side up too tight until you've got all your nuts and bolts in place, so you've got wiggle room if you need to wiggle some up. So that's tight, and that's tight. So all I need to do now is solder the plus and the minus back onto the speaker. There's our amplifier board back in, our speakers back in, and we're back on the deck. So as you give you another look at the height of it, there we go. So I'm not going to power this up on camera yet. As I said, you have to wait to the end. So that's the speaker connections back on. Although if you do turn it up too loud, it seems to stop all the lights working, so I don't know whether that's just a power consumption thing. But yeah, that's just Aspire to go. I'm not showing you it on camera. So I've got one more ring to make actually, so we'll do that in a moment. So we are at 16 layers. Okay, so here we have our last ring. This is ring number 17. This is the first of the spire. So it's layer number 9 again, so the 5th inner hole of the rings, but it's every other hole. So I've cut a few of these short, and we can start soldering shortly. A little bit of solder paste on there. Job's a good one. Okay, so there's our 8 or every other one. So just remember when you're attaching this one, you're actually going for every other leg pretty much. Where they are. Right, so I've bent these legs out. What I'm going to do is bend them out some more and then try to solder the same as we have been already, but to every other LED. Doesn't really matter, these are just going to flash with the top level anyway. So they're all splayed out. So now I'll try and just fit those around these and then I'll start soldering. There we go, that's working. Okay, so we've got our spire base level with the 8, not the 16. I've extended the legs on this. As you can see, I've soldered some offcuts on. So I've basically got 6 going on to 8 here. So I'll just try and get a few of these soldered in, which ain't going to be easy. So I'll get one on in a minute. Okay, so I've got a bit of solder in there at last. Okay, so I've got one in. Right, so we're just about getting the whole thing in. So there's the base. Here we are, our 16 levels. And then we have this one. Then we have our basic half level 9, so every other one. Then the 6 that I made, which I put in as extra. Then the 3, and then the single one on top, and that'll be job finished. So yeah, very basic construction compared to the old Canton tower I did. Oh, and the IC of course, which as you will see, the Canton tower had a whole host of resistors on there, as well as the other couple of bits. So again, it was basically the same style construction, but as you can see, that one was a bit wonkier and shoddier. It looks worse in person, to be honest. But I did rush that one a little bit to get it finished for the video because I was new then. But this one I've taken a bit more time on. It is still a wee bit shoddy. I mean, there's some lean to it. You can see it goes up to the left a bit there. But considering the size to the other one, I've done a lot better job on this one. Yeah, so let's finish off the top 2 layers and light her up. Right, I'm just barely getting the whole tower into the shot here. So I'm going to plug some power in. There's a memory card inserted there. I'm going to slot that out a minute. That's a really tight fit, that memory card. So this is the basic demo mode at the moment. I might have to try and either edit out some sound or mute it a bit while it plays in a minute. Right, okay, so here we are. This is the actual project itself. We'll get a close-up in a minute. The top 1, 2, 3, the top 3 layers and the LED are all connected to the 16th top layer. So the whole top layer is just one piece. LED tower itself, I mean, that's not a bad effort compared to my first one, but it's certainly some improvement there. So unplug that one and plug this one in, and you can see the size difference. It's massive. So yeah, that's a cracking bit of kit. So the GUANGZHOU tower, this is it's a cracking build. It's taken a good few hours. I mean, that's a good 16 inches tall, I'd say. That's just shy of 16 inches tall. Probably would have been just over 16, 17 if I hadn't used shorter LEDs in the middle there. But yeah, it's a cracking build. You've got to watch what you're doing, check it as you go, power each layer up independently, or, you know, as you do each one, power it up so you can make sure that you haven't got any problems with that layer, because, you know, it's going to cause problems higher up. And yeah, just take your time, really. This one's all about patience. It's not hard. I wouldn't say it's a beginner level. I'd say it's just sort of, you know, intermediate. Experts will do it easily, but use the templates. These really do make a big difference in constructing those rings. I mean, you've got templates now. You can construct rings like this and, you know, use them for other purposes or whatever. So, yeah, like the video. Thanks for watching. I'd really recommend going for it. I mean, that's just awesome. I love it. It's brilliant. See you soon. Got a good clock surface mount kit coming up soon. That's another one that's been waiting in the wings with this kit, because they're both going to be quite time consuming and intricate. So I've now got hours of editing to do. So I'll see you in the next video, and take it easy.